This video is going to be a film study look at Frank Ragnow, the versatile and athletic starting center for the Detroit Lions. The idea for this video, the impetus for it was multiple comments or suggestions on previous Lions videos. So credit to all of you that gave me the suggestion to look at Frank Ragnow, specifically end zone angle film, which has been another suggestion or thing that people have asked for. He's a guy who makes plays in all directions. Now, when I say makes plays, I'm certainly not talking about receptions or carrying the football, blocking. He reminds me as an offensive lineman of like a five-tool player in baseball. Most of my comparisons or sports comparisons, I use basketball. So I will, once again, it reminds me of a guy who can shoot the three, post up, drive the ball, and also plays defense like a maniac because he's good moving in any direction, particularly pass pro, whether he's moving laterally or pulling out to the edge or moving backwards in a typical pass set. Not really backwards. That's a little bit of a misnomer here. Basically, whatever the angle is on the play concept, run or pass, whatever angle he's supposed to take, he's an integral part of what they do. He's utilized at the point of attack often on run schemes, whether it's gap or down schemes or zone, outside zone schemes, stretch, if you will. He executes all of those things over the course of one game and at a really high level. Certainly not the biggest, burliest center in the league among the top 5-7 guys that are universally ranked there, but really quick, athletic, super aware. What I did was I went back first. What I did was I went back and I compared the games that Ragnow missed in the last 2 years, 2022 and 2023, because I often felt like leading up to each Lions game, not each one, but at least 4 or 5 each year, hearing of him battling an injury or dealing with something. So much so over the course of the last 2 years that where we would get to Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, he's either not practicing or limited participant. I was surprised when I went back and looked and saw that he only missed 3 games the last 2 years. What I mean is I knew there was times he was dealing with things and did play. For the amount of times that I heard or read about him either not participating in practice at all during a given week or being a limited participant for the only 2 days he did get out there, for him to play 16 games in 2022 and I think 15 in 2023, I thought was pretty remarkable for the amount of injuries that he's apparently dealt with. He only missed this past year the Week 8 game against the Raiders and then the rematch with the Bears on the road in Week 14. He only played 30 snaps the week before that, Week 13, the road win down in New Orleans, 33-28 over the Saints. Otherwise, you're talking about a guy who plays 100% of the snaps in 2022 and 2023. He missed one game in 2 years ago. That was Week 2 home win over Washington. He's played 100% of the snaps in 32 of the last 37 games for the Detroit Lions. I guess technically I'm lying there. It's 100% of the snaps in 31 of the last 37 games. There's one additional game where he played 99% of the snaps, and then a 34th game where he played 90% of the snaps. Basically, if he suits up, he's going to play every damn snap. He's a rock. If you ask me, he's a leader of the offensive line. I say that with more certainty now after intentionally watching him, focusing on his role for the last 2 or 3 days and trying to notice patterns to present to you guys. I'm sure that they've already been presented to you about Frank Ragnow. He's a spectacular offensive lineman. Other content creators or social media accounts for the Lions, I'm sure, have covered it. I'm going to try to illustrate it here with film. One thing I do want to mention, I don't go over other people's work or statistical evaluations, metrics before doing a film study video. I want it to be organic, and there's some natural weaknesses with that, obviously, with my work. I'm ignoring data intentionally that is out there, but that's my deal. I'm going to watch the film, tell you what I see, for better or worse, utilize what I give you, hopefully, and other sources. Use the data from other people. I encourage you to go find that data that either supports or belies or goes against the analysis that I'm going to give you here on Frank Ragnow. I think he's a stabilizing force for the Lions O-line. He appears to make checks pre-snap and even confirms things with Goff and vice versa. They confirm things with each other. He's physical enough and extremely technical to make up for, again, there's other guys that are bigger at the center position. He's extremely aware on stunts or movements that the D-line might make on any given play. I find him to be an incredibly valuable player for this offense. I hope he plays for a number of years. Talk about him retiring prior to the 2024 season. Didn't happen. So, of course, Lions fans are relieved to hear that he's returning for this next season, hopefully a Super Bowl bid. Usually in my film study videos, I try to package plays together so you can see 3 or 4 examples of a player executing a particular concept or technique or something they're good at. In essence, similar plays packaged together. I'm actually going to do this in a different way. I'm going to show you 4 plays initially here that I think illustrate how versatile Ragnow is across schemes on different types of blocks, down blocks, pulling out to the edge, the athleticism to get out to the edge in a little bit of space and deal with nickel defenders or even DBs in some cases. So this is a 15-yard run by Montgomery up the middle, a split zone concept. I actually really like how the Lions do this out of 12 personnel. You've got Laporta lined up as a tight end to the boundary first. Then they bring the second tight end in late. One of the classic formations that Ben Johnson uses. Ace. So Ragnow's obviously playing center. He's going to get down on the one technique along with the left guard. You also see that Warner kind of overreacts to the tight end crossing the formation and ends up kind of betraying his gap. But nonetheless, you get an idea of Ragnow just punching 98, a little bit above hip level, almost in the rib cage with his right hand. And the left hand's going to be up a little higher underneath the shoulder pad, just taking that guy where he wants him to go, along with help from the left guard, obviously. Like I said, 15-yard gain. When you go back and look at the plays, I didn't need to grab 85 plays. It was like when I looked at a game with the way that my data is organized, when I looked at a game and I found some big runs, went and watched Ragnow, and I was like, oh, he's a part of it. He's playing a role in almost each one of those instances. The O-line is obviously very integrated, works together really well. It's a power concept, essentially, to the weak side out of 12 personnel. Really cool way that Ben Johnson gets some work done with fullbacks. Jason Cabinda's been there for a couple of years, but they'll do it with a tight end on the field. So you have 2 tight ends here on the field against the Panthers, and they line up one of the tight ends at fullback, ask him to execute the kick-out block just like a fullback would. In this case, it ends up being a 42-yard touchdown run by Montgomery. Give the end zone angle so you can get an idea of what Ragnow's doing on this play. So the guard is pulling, the right guard is pulling, ends up helping out on the edge defender, which is Justin Houston, along with the fullback. Ragnow's trying to handle the one technique on his own, ends up basically taking the guy to the ground. The guy tries to cross his face. I find his awareness level to be really high, meaning he understands based on his, well, he's a high-level offensive lineman, all-pro caliber guy. So, of course, he understands this. But I want to point it out to you as best as I understand it. He understands where the player, the defensive tackle in this case, can impact the play. He's not going to be able to go to the underside of this and get around to this power concept generally. It would involve the defensive tackle being able to cross his face. So Ragnow's trying to beat the head and secure him or seal him on that side. In this case, the defensive tackle is able to long arm for a moment and then try to get to the other side. But you can see there's already a wall built such that Ragnow's block isn't the key block to finish it off, but giving you different techniques, different schemes, and showing you how good he is at them. So let's go drastically different now. Of course, Ragnow is at center. If you haven't figured it out already, this is 42-yard touchdown run by Jameson Williams in the playoffs against the 49ers. That's Ragnow getting out there and then dealing with one of the second-level defenders. Won't give you the end zone angle for this one, but I want you to I'll stop it a couple of times when I run it this time through, and you can see what Ragnow does and how he does impact the play. So you got the back on the right. You got this action by the tight end, and then he's going to return back out to the edge and I think pick up the corner, Ward. Ragnow, watch him slowly sift out to the edge, almost like a hidden pull. And then once he gets out there, because you've got a cross-pulling action with the right guard, that's designed to hold this inside linebacker and make him think, I've got a running back crossing the quarterback's face. In this case, Montgomery was on the right. He's crossing Goff's face, potentially going to this side. Additional to that, you have the right guard, which would be in Fred Warner's field of view. It'd be one of his keys. He's also pulling to the left side, the top side of our screen. Simultaneous to that, Ragnow is folding underneath and then goes to pick up a second-level defender who was in on the play, meaning he was aware of the reverse from Jameson Williams. First of all, he's an amazing weapon to have out there on reverse plays, but Ragnow is a guy who can get out there in space and give the ball carrier, in this case Jameson Williams, at least a one-way go, if not a two-way go, meaning he's athletic enough to not get lost in the situation, keep on his tracks, make that defender commit, such that if that defender had chosen to go inside, now Jameson Williams Reed becomes the next man out, meaning the tight end out on Ward, potentially on either of those two tracks. Again, that's if the guy that Ragnow is engaging now was to stunt or slam to the inside there, basically forcing Jameson Williams to bounce it a little bit, you would still end up with a similar situation. Jameson Williams out in space with a two-way go. Last one, Gibbs 31-yard touchdown against the Bucs in the playoffs. Don't ask me what the Bucs are doing from a defensive alignment standpoint. They're outnumbered at the point of attack. But first of all, it's a great job by the right tackle, right guard, and the center, Ragnow in this case. But we're highlighting him. Bucs are lined up like in an underfront, but to the wrong side. So they got a 1 technique D tackle, 4-eye, 4, depending on what you want to call them, and then a 9 technique. Over to the other side, you got a 3-man surface by the Lions and a fullback to that side, Kabinda, and they've only got 2 first-level defenders. So kind of 3 over 2, they, the Bucs, to the weak side, our left-hand side of the screen, and 2 over 3 or almost 2 over 3.5 to the right side. That's not how you do the numbers. I'm not going to break that down, but check out what the right guard does with the 1 technique. He's able to handle him, and then Ragnow is able to get up to Levante David and just take him out of there. Here's the right guard basically taking this guy down in that direction, and then Ragnow is going to get up to David, just ride him out of there, such that when Gibbs decides to cut it downhill, there's nobody there at the second level. Again, the Bucs are a man down at least to the point of attack, to that 3-man surface side where you have guard, left tackle, and tight end, which is Brock Wright, and then additional to that, the fullback Kabinda is in the field. So they're at least a man down there as far as the numbers, but it's still a great job by the right side of the offensive line to get a hold of people and give Gibbs that ability to read it, make 1 cut downhill, and take it to the house from 31 yards. 4 more run plays here that just kind of illustrate how good he is on combo blocks, the angles he takes, number 2. Also with this one, the willingness of Ben Johnson as an offensive coordinator to run the ball to a 1 receiver side. That may sound simple, or it may sound like something you haven't heard many other people talk about before. There are offensive coordinators at all levels of play who just will not run the football back to a side where there's only 1 receiver, unless there is a fullback in the backfield to go lead block, or it's a split zone concept where the H, the Y, tight end, whatever you want to call them, from the other side is crossing the heels of the offensive line and kicking someone out. This is an example of Ben Johnson being willing to run the ball to the 1 receiver side on a concept where he's not pulling a position player, fullback or a tight end, nor in this case is he pulling an offensive lineman because it's a zone scheme. In terms of Ragnow, when you get the end zone angle of this one, I think you'll really appreciate it and like it. He's getting a shot in here on the defensive tackle along with Jonah Jackson, and then moves up immediately, gets his shoulder square to the line of scrimmage, and gets to the second level defender. In this case, it's inside linebacker number 55. I'll show you the end zone angle of this one. I think it'll do a better job of showing the skill, the technique than maybe I have explained. There's the motion going across. So man-to-man, it's a too high safety structure. So maybe if this safety was rolled down as an apex defender, as an overhang defender, whatever, then maybe he'd be the unblocked guy and Gibbs would have to make someone miss. But in any case, look at Ragnow combo on the defensive tackle, and then working up to the inside linebacker. Completely got this thing sealed off here with, I think, Sorsdahl 60. Gibbs is able to burst through, lean, and then juke back towards the sideline. Ends up being a 21-yard gain. One more time from the end zone angle so you can see it and then hopefully appreciate it a little bit more. Ragnow's got perfect technique on a lot of these combo blocks, if you ask me, and there's different types of combo blocks, different aiming points for your hands, and he seems to always do it the correct way. Sometimes he'll be soloed up with a nose tackle. And this is only going to be, I think, a 6-yard gain. I didn't want to present only combo blocks whereby I don't want to say his lack of size because he's a 310, 350-pound guy, but compared to some of the players he goes against, compared to some of the other centers in the league, he isn't a massive center. But in this case, he gets not only his second foot down in the ground before 95 does, but also his third foot down before 95 has even kind of begun his third step. So getting that second foot in the ground is important. This is a single block on a shaded nose tackle, short zone or short toss concept on a zone, and look how quickly Ragnow's able to get out there. 95 still got his second foot in the ground. Ragnow's almost got his third in the ground. Now, eventually, here he does lose after a little bit of a push and then rip by the nose tackle. It still ends up being a 6-yard gain. I think in my database I have it for a 4-yard gain. I'm now looking at it now. The ball's on the yard line of the 45, I believe, or the 40, and Montgomery goes down on the 46, almost the 46 and a half. So just didn't want to present the idea that he was only effective or utilized on combo blocks in combination with guards. He's oftentimes asked to single block things. One of my favorite concepts that Ben Johnson or any team in the NFL for that matter has run in the last couple of years, wham trap. So he's the center. Obviously, him and Skipper are going to have the same job, the same technique, and you'll see it from the end zone angle. They're going to inside release and then go get the second level defenders. Laporta motions down. He's going to trap or wham trap the defensive tackle here. Great job. And when you get the end zone angle, you'll see the huge hole that there is for Gibbs to run through. And then Sewell is stepping out to the outside linebacker. Atlanta's really got some issues in the last couple of years with block destruction, not getting hands on offensive linemen, allowing free releases. And in this case, free releases against Ragnow and anyone that plays offensive line for the Detroit Lions is death because they're going to get to their assignment. So Ragnow, again, is going to work up to 44. Skipper is going to inside release and lean just a little bit to get away from the D tackle to work up to 55, seal those guys off so they can't make the tackle. Try to pick a selection of plays that, in terms of the run plays, that illustrated to you how often Ragnow was one of the key blocks on a successful run play. This one doesn't go for a touchdown. Gibbs actually takes a heck of a shot to end this play. Wham trap, again, triple trap, some people will call it, because you're trapping three guys, in this case the D tackle to the front side, D tackle to the back side, and then the DN to the far side, back side, who's away from the play. Not going to really make the play anyway. Triple trap, wham trap, whatever you call it. The Lions do a great job of executing it, and I think this play just gives you another example of the widespread nature or widespread concepts and techniques that Ragnow's able to execute to help the Lions' run game be effective. Finally, another one-on-one, this one against Vita Vea. This is the fourth down touchdown run by Craig Reynolds in the playoff game, and he doesn't move Vita Vea here, okay? So, but he doesn't have to. He understands where the play is going, and all he's trying to do is give Craig Reynolds any kind of seam, and in this case, he's just trying to get his head to this side. Vita Vea knows that, and so that's why he's able to shed Ragnow, basically dump him to the ground. Ragnow stays on him just enough. Vea or no one else is able to make the tackle. Reynolds plunges in for an important touchdown, like I said, on a 4th and 1. Ragnow's a guy who I would describe it this way. If he's going to lose, he's not going to lose to the play side. Now, he did lose there after Vita Vea was able to shed him, grab him, and basically throw him to the ground. But he's not going to lose to the play side on the initial engagement. He's technically very sound, and he's a guy who I think has extremely high awareness of where the football is intended to go, and then on top of that, or as an added element, what front the defense is in and how he's got to step in order to get his block accomplished. We'll move into some of the pass concepts in here, and I'll try to expand upon that last point that I just made, which is that Ragnow not only knows what his job is, where he's supposed to step, but also where the weakness of the play is, meaning he can get beat to a certain side because he has help to that side. This is play action, a 3rd and 1 against the Chargers. The play fake to Montgomery is going to be to this side. They're basically faking a kick concept where Rodriguez is faking kick, like he's going to kick out the edge defender. They're going to run downhill. Ragnow, of course, is the center. He's got a shaded D tackle to his left. That guy kind of stunts across his face, and Ragnow's content with that. Why? I think he understands and knows in the middle of this play that Montgomery in the play fake is going to his right, meaning Ragnow's right. such that there would be help for Montgomery to help collision that D tackle. If he had gone the other way, I think you would see Ragnow with more resistance in terms of trying to ride that player out of there, that defensive tackle out of there. Meaning, if you had this guy here try to cross his face and go here, I think Ragnow's step would have allowed him and his understanding of the play to try to ride that guy further out of there in this direction so that Goff would have a clean throwing platform on this 3rd and 1 play action. Basically, the idea is he understands which side he can lose to because of the structure or design of the play. He has the help of Montgomery to his right side A-gap when that defensive tackle stunts across his face. Really exceptional, I think, at passing off switch pass rushes, whether it's D tackles or people stunting from the other side, zone blitz, if you will. This is a completion to Laporta against Levante David in that Week 6 win down in Tampa Bay. A wonderful game from the standpoint of David versus Laporta. Laporta, of course, came in with an ankle injury. I think he was even questionable at some point. But you have to give Levante David credit. One of the few guys who did a great job. And look at the alignment that he's playing from. He's lined up as an A-gap defender. And then because no outside linebacker is touching Laporta at all, Laporta's got a free release, and David is trying to cover him to the boundary. But we're focusing on, and it ends up being a catch, a big catch. One of the few ones that he had on that day. So Ragnow riding the defensive tackle to the left. Great eyes because he sees someone trying to cross his face and passes him off to the left guard, moves all the way across to pick up that stunting defensive player. I want to let it run a couple of times and then show you who that is. And the timing of when Ragnow picks him up, it only occurs because of how great his eyes are, how aware he is. And he's able to see one player, in this case, this D tackle stunting all the way across. He's able to see that guy while engaging the nearest defender to him, the closest threat, passing him off to the guard, working underneath of the right guard, and Goff gets that throw off just in time before the defensive tackle can get there. I feel like it's a beautiful example of how quick, how smart he is, and how he can adjust during the play. Skip forward a little bit. Another example of this. Ragnow's at center. This is a 3rd and 5 completion to Laporta. So same concept from a Ragnow perspective, in that you have defensive tackles who might switch, and he's got to stay balanced enough to handle the switch if it does occur, and or deal with the defensive tackle trying to rush over the top of him. So his steps and Sorsdal's steps are both to the right here, because they've got the back helping to the other side. So the back and the left tackle are handling, this gap and this gap. Rewind it back a little bit here so you can see the steps again. So as he steps to that side, look at the left hand out to help the left guard. In this case, it's Jackson. He played that week. Once the D tackles switch rush, he takes over the guy that Jackson was engaging. I think it's 95. Brilliant catch by Laporta, obviously, against man coverage. I'll let you guys watch it one more time through. Hopefully my commentary does it justice or didn't ruin it for you. But like those two plays there from a Ragnow perspective really give you an idea of how he's able to assist the guards next to him, and in some cases fold all the way over to pick up switching defensive tackles that otherwise, if he didn't pick them up, could have gotten to Jared Goff and disrupted the throw, potentially. Also clearly adept at standing his ground, meaning a bull rush or a rush from one side or the other. In this case, you got 96, 94, and Shaq Barrett all on one side as potential rushers. I think Ragnow's the guy who generally makes calls pre-snap. There's others that are involved in it as well, and Jared Goff is really good at it. So you've got 3 potential guys here as rushers to the Lions' left, our right-hand side of the screen, obviously. So I think Ragnow pointing pre-snap is just alerting guys to the fact that they could switch rush, and the right guard needs to be aware because he doesn't have anybody lined up over top of him. But he has the strength, the base, the foundation, and the feet to be able to hold his ground on bull rushes, not give up too much ground. It's the 3rd and 15. Amazing play by Amon-Ra St. Brown where he's able to power through defenders to get 16 yards. Thought he played a brilliant game against the Bucs in the playoffs, he being St. Brown, which doesn't really narrow it down because he plays great pretty much every week. Another example of him standing his ground in pass pro the next week against the 49ers. He's a balanced player from a feet, knees, and hips perspective. He doesn't overcommit to things with his second or third step, which you'll often find when guys think that they see a stunt coming or someone trying to cross his face. He's a very balanced center, if you ask me. Lions fans should be and are, I know, thankful that he chose to return because, A, you can get a lot of things done with him when he's on the field, which is almost every snap and almost every game, and he's a super reliable guy across multiple techniques. Last one, kind of illustrative of the play-action nature of what the Lions do under Ben Johnson way back in week 1, almost seems like 2 years ago at this point. Similar to the play that I showed you against the Falcons, where the line of run play against the Falcons. Everyone's working this way, trying to sell the run, play action to the running back to that side. So you got full flow with the running back and all the offensive linemen. You do have a tight end going against that flow, but it's for pass pro, and Goff sets his feet. Of course, hits Josh Reynolds in zone 4, which, if you've watched my videos much, you know I think is the zone, the hot zone for Jared Goff in terms of where he is most efficient and where he can hit throws the quickest or whatever. You know, he's a right-handed quarterback. His body positioning gets him in the right spot. But look, from a Frank Ragnow perspective, I think you've got as good as it gets in the NFL at the center position. And I say that with more certainty and definitively now after specifically focusing on him for the last 3 or 4 days. I wanted to get this video out Thursday night, but things often get in the way. This is one of my favorite things to do is to try to look at the offensive line, the end zone angle, and show it to you guys and evaluate it because I feel like it's my own personal weakness in terms of the overall scheme. I think Ragnow's a guy that does things very technically. He reminds me of I'll make 2 sports comparisons here. He reminds me of a baseball player who hits a lot of singles and doubles, doesn't strike out much, gets on base a whole heck of a lot, but still figures out a way to drive in 80, 85 runs in a season. From a basketball perspective, he reminds me of a guy who shoots a very high percentage and doesn't turn the football over, plays great defense on the other end. It's a special player that the Lions have. Penei Sewell, rightfully so, is looked at as the best offensive lineman. I would put Frank Ragnow right there with him in terms of importance for this offensive line. The Bears game that he missed on the road, the loss late in the season, I think is kind of instructive of the quality, the drop-off in quality, overall consistency that you get when a guy like Frank Ragnow doesn't play. If you're a Lions fan, you appreciate this video, you think other Lions fans would like to see this, please consider grabbing a link to it, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach. If you have other film study video suggestions or topic suggestions, please feel free to let me know in the comment section. The next one I'll probably work on is one about Sam Laporta and or Brian Branch. Those guys I have a significant amount of film of, and I also feel a little guilty putting more content out there about them because I covered them so extensively during the 2023 season. Appreciate you guys' time.